Hi guys, and welcome to this video on Pluto moving into Aquarius on the 21st of January 2024. Thanks for joining me. I wanted to make a separate video on this because I'm super fascinated by this shift because it really signals the end of one era and the beginning of a whole new one. And I just want to look at this in a little bit more detail just to kind of understand what we're kind of moving in towards and what we can expect. So, I'm in Europe, I'm in Central Europe, so my time zone, Central European time, this happens on the 21st of January at 1:50 in the morning and 47 seconds, I worked it out exactly. If you're west of Europe in North or South America, it happens in the evening on the 20th of January 2024. And to draw up a chart like this, like your natal chart, your birth chart, I need three things: your place of birth, date of birth, and time of birth. And that then gives me a very exact snapshot of the sky at the moment you were born, from the place you were born at that exact minute, looking up, from position of Earth looking up. And then I split the sky into 12 houses, and I really see how the planets were placed, what signs they were in, how they interacted, and what areas of your life they express themselves in most significantly. And the thinking behind this is as above, so below. So the way the planets were arranged at the moment of your birth really have a huge impact on you personally. And there are a lot of things to look at in a birth chart. So we've got the luminaries, the sun and the moon. And I always mention that the sun is like your head, the moon is like your heart. The personal planets, which are very significant in terms of the way you express your personality and the kind of dynamic you experience. But then we also have 5 outer planets. We have Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, Saturn, and Pluto. And they're much more about society and humanity and us as a group and the way we interact with each other and what that kind of energy is all about. And Pluto is the one that's furthest away from us. And I always mention that it's like the phoenix rising from the ashes because it is all about transformation and change, death and rebirth. And it rules Scorpio, which is a water sign that's very focused on kind of going into those dark places in order to discover real meaning and truth and not to be frightened by the dark because you see value in it. I can identify something so I can bring it to the light, I can transform it, and I can use it as fuel to rebirth myself. So with this planet particularly changing signs, it means that what is it that makes us feel alive and what makes us feel rebirthed? And it exists in these extreme places that the shift is going to be of massive significance, and it moves so slowly that, I mean, sometimes it can be in one sign for 5-10 years, other times 2 decades or even more. And in this case, it's going to shift pretty much into Aquarius. It's got one more retrograde in 2024. So it's going to shift into Aquarius, then revisit Capricorn later on in the year, but then really stay in Aquarius pretty much until 2044. So you'll notice that as a society, certain things are now valued that weren't before. And certain things that were of massive significance have just faded away, and there seems to be no rhyme or reason to it. And it's this gradual shift of what the group consciousness believes and values and is focused on. And I just want to go down memory lane a little bit just to give you an idea of this, because Pluto does move very slowly, and it was in Sagittarius from December 1995 until December 2008. So if you think about the phoenix rising from the ashes, this transformation planet, in this super fiery sign of Sagittarius, which is associated with using your own strength and energy to travel and to set goals and to discover things, in the traditional birth chart, each house is assigned a sign. So the first house is Aries, second house is Taurus, third house is Gemini, right? And it goes through. By the time you get to the 9th house, which is ruled by Sagittarius, that house is associated with all of those things, traveling and moving and expanding. It's also ruled by Jupiter, the lucky planet, which is all about growth. So that period of time, to me, really represented all of those things. In 95, I think pretty much, we had the internet, and I remember using it for the first time, like when I was an adolescent, and that suddenly made the world seem much smaller and we could connect with anybody. And then in 2001, we had 9/11, which was something that completely changed the world. The USA had never been attacked, I think, on its own soil. And it was like suddenly all of these things that were far away from us now suddenly were right here. And then we had the iPhone that was created at the very end of it in 2007, which was also like a revelation. I remember how desirable those things were when they first came out. And it was like suddenly, you know, you had this supercomputer in your hand, and where years ago you needed like this brick which had like 1 gigabyte of memory and the whole thing. Now you had this little item in your hand that could do everything on the go, mobile. It could help you navigate, and it really changed everything. And also, I mean, I was still a teenager, but I think it was really a time where there was a lot of a big sense of expansion and hope for the future and potential and growth. And I also think the economy was not as kind of constantly going through something. There was a sense that things were affordable and banks were lending money, and you know, people were working towards things. So there was a huge sense of optimism associated with it. And then in 2008, Pluto moved into Capricorn. And Capricorn is an earth sign that's associated with the worker and setting goals, but getting them done in a consistent, steady way. It's associated with many things. I mean, it's associated with the bones of something, form and structure, both in an intellectual sense and in a physical sense. And again, the houses in the ruler of Capricorn, so it's associated with the 10th house in the traditional chart. And that's your work and your career, and really what you're putting a lot of effort into and how you're creating a living out of that. So it's effort and energy spent in order to build and create something solid and valuable. And the ruler Saturn is the planet of structure and security and really putting foundations in place, right? So when Pluto moved into the sign of Capricorn, Pluto being very different to the ruler of Capricorn, Saturn, Pluto is about getting rid of the foundations and the structures and not being certain about what can I rely on. And it's been in Capricorn since 2008, and it's been that way until it changes now on the 21st of January 2024. So a lot of things happened in that period. 2008, we had the mortgage market and the economy really just implode. It seemed very difficult, and feel free to disagree with me, but I had this sense that, you know, there was an expectation of working really hard for less, and that being carefree and irresponsible was no longer even an option. It was like, you're here to work and you're here to do, and there's this sense of limitation, and we're pushing against something. We're trying to build something that now feels much more difficult and harder. So I think it was a time where life felt more arduous, and there were fewer options. And then near the end of it, like in the last few years, I mean, we all remember that the governments really took an active role in our lives, and then our work, the structures and the foundations of that changed very much, with a lot of people starting to work from home and going out into places and cities, and suddenly it was completely empty, and having this sense of what are the structures that underpin my life and what is meaningful, and it's just me. So it was really a time that was valuable in many ways, of applying yourself and working through things and having this sense of, yes, things are somewhat tough and challenging, but I'm doing it for the right reasons. I'm building structure here, and I'm pushing away at something, and I know where I'm going in a way. And it doesn't really matter how abundant things are. If I make the effort, then I am able to create something. So what's interesting with Pluto is that those structures that had always been in place, particularly in the area of work and the way we kind of create securities in our lives, became very different. And now on the 21st of January, Pluto ingresses into Aquarius, and Aquarius is a very different sign. And if you just think of the progression of those three, Sagittarius, we're going on holiday, we're traveling, we're learning, and we're exploring. And then Capricorn is, we've come back from all that fun, and now it's time to work again and to put certain things in place to, you know, get responsible. Aquarius is very much the humanitarian and the thinker who's done the hard work, and now he has a little bit of time to breathe, to explore all of these unusual ideas and the way things could be done, because there's that hindsight of, I have been working so hard, what else is really possible that isn't kind of blinkered and focused on one particular goal, but what's the wonderful magical thing that hasn't been explored yet? So that's the real shift, in the sense of what's going to be valued as the new and the unexplored and the thing that supports us as a society. Aquarius, even though it's an air sign, so ideas, thinking, perspective, communication, it's often associated with the water bearer, which is about, I am detoxing things and I'm purifying and I'm making myself lighter. And I'm doing that not just for myself, but everybody. It's being the teacher and the humanitarian, the person who's interested in using ideas and the intellect and invention and innovation to make things better for everyone else. So you can just hear from the way I'm talking, it's much more open and it's much more idealistic about anything is possible. And again, if you think about the houses, Aquarius is the 11th house, which I associate with relationships as they relate to you personally, your friendships and groups of people and your hopes and dreams and your outlook on ideologies and belief systems and all of that. So those things are up for discussion, and it's not so much about, okay, I'm following the rules and this is the way it is and it's got to be, and I'm following everything. This is about, I get to invent the way life is and what meaning is and who I want to connect with. And I want to find my tribe and people who, you see, it's very, very healing and nurturing in a way. So it does happen on the 21st again here in Central Europe, if you're west of Europe on the 20th. And it stays there until January 2044. And one of the things that I've noticed recently, just in the build up to this, is what's become much more prevalent is people who are saying, do you know what, I have been working really hard for 15 years and this is what I have to show for it. Maybe I could try it differently. Like this approach of work is what you're here for and responsibility is not just a necessity or even a luxury. This is like just the way it is. There's no choice. And people have really started to open up, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of saying, okay, well, I've had more pressure, I've had more rules to follow. Maybe I don't need to bow to that pressure anymore. Maybe I can do it my own way. So rebellion in a healthy way that's saying, these rules aren't affecting everyone around me very well. Let's try and reinvent them and do them differently. So the last time Pluto was in Aquarius was in 1778 until 1798. And we had the War of Independence from 1775 to 1783. And that was when, in the US, the northern colonies kind of broke free or were at war with Great Britain. So it was a similar sense of, these are the people who govern us. Maybe not. Maybe we don't need to follow these rules. Maybe we can make our own rules. And it's that kind of vibe. So the ruler of Aquarius is Uranus. And Uranus is the planet of the miraculous and the unexpected and change and what you can't rely on. So we've got Pluto, right? Which is the firebird, living in these extreme twilight places, in the sign governed by Uranus, which is about, I don't care about security. In fact, I want to blow up security and I want to reinvent the wheel here to see if another shape works better. Maybe it doesn't, but I want to try. And that's really the decisiveness, as in, the new is better than the old. I want to change things up just for the sake of things. I don't want to maintain and conserve and be traditional in my outlook and thinking. I want to be adventurous and I want to be willing to believe that anything is possible. So Pluto goes into Aquarius on the 20th of January, if you're west of Europe, on the 21st, if you're in Europe or east of Europe. But then, and it's moving steadily forwards, but on the 2nd of May, Pluto appears to go backwards. It retrogrades until the 11th of October. So because of that backward motion, it retrogrades back into Capricorn on the 2nd of September 2024, and it moves back into Aquarius its retrograde part of this, then moves forward, but it takes it a while to re-enter Aquarius on the 19th of November. So that period from the 2nd of September to the 19th of November, just think about that. We've now had Pluto from January to September. Oh, anything's possible. All of these ideas, how can I help others and invent something? It revisits Capricorn, and I think that is going to be very uncomfortable. And I think that time from September to November, it's going to be like, I've had this taste of freedom. I'm not going back to prison. I'm not going back to, you have got to operate like this. And I think things can become somewhat volatile around that time of the year, where it's like, and we don't want to follow the same old rules. So I think with the ruler of Aquarius, Uranus, it enjoys change and chaos and undoing structures. With Pluto, which is constantly transforming, being in that sign, ideas that are going to be stifled when it goes back into Capricorn in the autumn here, if you're in the northern hemisphere, so from September to November, I think there's going to be a real sensitivity as to any of that, and anything that seems oppressive and stifling is going to meet major opposition. So it's going to be Capricorn's last hurrah as such, but it's within these periods of Aquarius where a lot of structures are going to come undone. There will be massive change on a societal level. And you know, if you think about all the things that keep us in some sort of a box, breaking out of those boxes, it can be exciting, but it can also be violent, and it can create insecurity, and it can create it can remove systems of oppression and replace them with other systems which may be less repressive, but may be difficult in other areas. But the thing about it is it's exploratory and it's unknown. What we do know is that things will change. So once it goes back into Aquarius on the 19th of November, it then stays there until January 2044. So the idea's nature of this is, I want to bring down an institution because it's an institution, and we don't want those anymore. The thing is, we do need institutions to kind of interact as groups. It's all about freedom, valuing the individual humanity. So that to me bodes well in terms of, it is not me constantly pushing against everything in my life, so I don't need to push against other people as much. So I think this is a time where there's the potential for much more peace and a valuing of the human experience and what each individual human being is, rather than just brings to the table. Expect a lot of innovation, a lot of new systems of thinking, the willingness to learn, and optimism that if I understand something, then I can apply it, make my hopes and dreams come true. But as a group, we can also brainstorm and really create something that resembles utopia. So there's a sense that I'm not so willing to be the aggressor, and I'm much more willing to sit down with another person and listen and to learn from their experience, and likewise to share mine with them. So the other thing that comes with it is social change and social justice. That becomes much more important. Activism for particular causes and revolutions. And I mean, I'm no social commentator or mathematician or really, but what I to some degree know, that revolutions often depose one tyrant, but then often they're replaced with another tyrant. So the new isn't always better. It certainly is new and different, but the thing about this and Aquarius is we're testing out new things. Yes, we're willing to do that, but sometimes the practicals can be missing. And this is a Virgo speaking. The experience, the tested, tried and true methods, people aren't going to be so willing to go down the same route. So things may not work as efficiently as they have in the past. Also look out for major new inventions. So Sagittarius with the iPhone, right, in 2007, that's about teaching and travel and exploring and kind of making the world seem smaller. But Aquarius is about real kind of scientific innovation and inventing something completely new. So expect things in science to really pick up, technology, and also AI, artificial intelligence. this is again something that I'm interested in, and I'm no expert, but there's this notion that sooner or later AI is going to turn against humanity and we're going to lose control of it. And there are things like the Turing test. Once you can't determine as a human being whether that thing is artificial or not, that's when it's red flag. And then we also have authors like, I think I'm saying the name correctly, Walter Windy, who coined this phrase, the singularity, this moment when our innovations and our ideas, whether it's AI or other technologies, really start to grow out of our control and become this thing that can no longer be stopped. So it's the other extreme of all this openness and these new ideas. Yes, it's great to test them out and to try things, but it may be so revolutionary and, again, uncontrollable that these things then take on a life of their own and start to become the oppressive force and generate their own rules, and then it becomes us versus them. So you see, if you have a revolution and if you're championing a cause, there's still that sense of our group is going against this group. So there is still conflict, but it's not so much about simply putting your head down and working towards your goal and nothing else matters. There is also the willingness to be reflective within that journey and to embrace the chaos of it, as in, I am fighting for a particular cause here, but I'm also willing within all of that to listen to other ideas and to change my mind. Lo and behold, and I love changing my mind, because my thing always has been that it's so important not to be so certain of our own points of view. I know more than I did 5 years ago and 10 years ago, and I'll probably know more in 5 years. And if I'm more flexible in my approach and not so hunkered down, this is the way it's got to be because it's always been done that way, or this is what works best, I'm not willing to try it another way, that's often very restrictive and oppressive in itself. So the idea of control in itself is going to be very out. No trend, no bueno. Idealism becomes very in. So a new kind of era of we can make it work as a unit if we put our heads together. We can heal each other, we can group think, which in itself can be dangerous, but at least we're willing to connect and find a new solution to figure things out as a unit. So again, to me that says there's more potential for peace. And I've mentioned the lack of practicality sometimes that's problematic, that can be associated with this. Because if it's, I just want to experience everything and look at everything differently, sometimes the scope of that is too broad and you forget the details. And the idea becomes so exciting that those practical considerations are forgotten. So in this new era, I would just keep an eye on, or I would first of all welcome this openness and this willingness to connect with other people and to have really meaningful, good discussions. But I would also keep an eye on just the details and testing. Okay, this is a great new idea, but if we actually see it through and play the tape forward a little bit, what is the practical outcome of this? And in a few months or a few years down the road, have we kept on top of the details? Have we kept the plate spinning and made sure that we're on top of our practical considerations as well as our intellectual and spiritual ideas? So keep your eye on the ball. And it's kind of interesting to say this with such a huge shift, because it really is going to be, 21 years to keep your eye on the ball for 21 years. Embrace the shifts in society and this greater openness for new ideas to emerge. But also think about your friendships personally and your hopes and dreams for what you want to do in this next decade or two. And really how you can invest in that now and keep your eye on the details and start building those and gather the ideas as you go, because those will gain momentum. And also look at what groups that you're part of, or what groups you could start, or what new movements or what new ways of expressing the human experience are possible. So I think it's going to be, you know, the re-emergence of really like religious communities and people who think outside of the norm. But you're able to realize your own hopes and dreams, both in the personal and the political, the external. And to just bring it down to basics, it is the element of air, which Aquarius is, which is about your ideas. So how can you use your ideas to create more openness in both your personal life and in connection to society? How can you add value and receive value? But I think the important thing is not just to see yourself as a cog in a bigger wheel, which you're gonna not be that interested in anyway, but also to use all of these insights for yourself personally and to say, what can I do to now dream bigger and then actually act to build those in a constructive way. I think people who've been very kind of stuck in things where circumstances have felt like nothing ever changes, suddenly things open up. And if you're someone, and I mean, I haven't met anyone like this recently, if you're very just, you know, hopping from one place to the other, and one week you're studying this and another week you're teaching that, that's going to build and build and build. So before you go to the next idea, express that, write it down, teach it, like hold on to it and give it away, make a reel and give it away before you move on to the next thing. Because that's, again, the only thing that I noticed with Aquarius is that some of the brilliance can be lost because there is like almost a disdain for the physical, practical, detailed side of it. Yeah, so that's really all I just wanted to mention. I think it's really a fabulous opportunity. I've got the chart here in front of me. The shift happens when Pluto is right on top of the sun. So you'll feel this straight away in terms of your direction changing. Certain opportunities are going to arise. Ideas will pop in that you can immediately implement. And again, to look at the snapshot of the sky for something that's then going to be in place for 22 years may seem somewhat redundant, but it is right on top of the sun, which is really our head. And this is about the humanitarian and the teacher, and the humanitarian who detoxes the things from the past and says, well, it's a new start, new ideas, and in Pluto, let's rebirth the phoenix based on those ideas and how they can light up the world and life for myself and other people. Yeah. Okay, so if you would like a personal reading with me, please get in touch via my website. It's gregoryscott.com. On the front page, click on book your reading to audio reading with me. In my personal readings, I do draw up your birth chart like this, and I analyze that to see how the planets influence you and where you're supported naturally, where there may be some challenges. If you're going through a period of change, if you're thinking about moving or your career, what would be the ideal job, or family relationships, finance, hopes and dreams, travel for the future, spiritual development, friendships, anything at all really, please do get in touch with me for a personal reading. I also use the astrocartography to look at how particular areas in the world are going to influence you. So a natal chart is me on Earth looking up. The astrocartography reverses that, and you're looking down on planet Earth and how the planets were moving over different specific locations, and they will have a specific influence on your experience being in those locations. So if you're interested in any of that, then please do get in touch with me for a personal reading. I'm going to wish you a very happy 2 decades here, happy new ideas, and yeah, check out some of my other videos. I do videos on the new moons, full moons, do a monthly horoscope, and I also do a daily tarot reading on my channel. So if you're interested in any of those, please check them out. Have a wonderful 21 years, and I will speak to you tomorrow for the daily tarot reading. All the best, take care.